Hi, and welcome back. Hopefully, you gained a lot of insight after completing your first lesson, and I hope you did your homework assignments. Today, we're going to cover Lesson 2. So, are you ready? Let's get started. The chemicals in your brain, which you learned about in the first lesson, aren't the only aspect of attraction. How you grew up, your relationship with your family, and other influences like your community, culture, and early childhood experiences have influenced you in ways you are most likely not even aware of. Consider this: you may be walking right by your potential soulmate unaware because of your programming. See, your programming won't allow you to see the individual as a possible contender for your heart. Now, you're probably wondering, how is that so, right? It's something like this: they're too tall, too short, too big, too small. They are a blue collar worker versus white collar worker, from the wrong side of town, wrong ethnicity or religion. Political views is another one. And the list, it goes on and on. Most of us are aware of our biases, but do you stop and notice that they don't occur for you as biases? For you, it's just the truth. That person is definitely too short. And that's the way it is. This person is not compatible, and the cycle just continues on from there of dating the same person over and over again, expecting for it to turn out differently. So, as you engage in Lesson 2, I want you to keep in mind the story that I'm about to share with you. Now, if you were viewing me, as opposed to just listening to the audio, you can see that I am a Black female. I am of African heritage, but I grew up in a very diverse background. You see, the paternal side of my family, through my father's mixed ancestry, as well as on the maternal side, gave me all sorts of things that make up what you're looking at today. I have Irish, Ethiopian, and Egyptian ancestry. That gave me some very unique perspectives. Imagine a grandfather of Irish origins and then one of Ethiopian origin sharing their cultural views about love and happiness with me. I must say that as a child, I enjoyed a lot of interesting and very hilarious summers visiting my grandparents. So here's the story that I want to share with you and that I want you to keep in mind. I can still remember the first guy I ever had a crush on. Matter of fact, I kissed him. Well, okay, I at least kissed his image. I was 11 years old, and it was Elvis Presley. His film Blue Hawaii was showing on Rita Bell's at the movies. Rita showed classic movies, and during commercial breaks, she took calls from viewers. Maybe you grew up with a show like that as well. I remember watching Elvis sing as the camera moved in for a close up of him. I can recall experiencing chemicals releasing, although I didn't know that's what was happening to me at the time. Most of us don't know or understand what that feeling is. And seriously, how could I know at age 11? I remember moving closer to the television. I leaned in and I kissed Elvis. Now, that's when I was startled to hear my older brother say, "What are you doing?" I remember I drew back in embarrassment as I said, "I'm not doing anything." He said, "Yeah, I saw you. You were kissing Elvis Presley." He said, "Come here and let me talk to you." Now, I have to tell you, I didn't expect the conversation that followed. That day, my older brother explained to me that because I was a Black girl, I should never want to kiss a white male. He told me that in doing so, I was disgracing myself. That day, my brother explained to me, with all of the love and concern in his heart, that Black women in the United States had endured so much humiliation, rape, and shame that I should never consider marrying anyone other than a black man. You see, he was referring to the time of slavery. Now, that was a long time ago, but I always trusted my brother and I listened to him. I grappled with it for a while in shock, not because I was so interested in Elvis, but my brother gave me a narrative that influenced my life and my adult decisions in who I considered dating and eventually marrying. Fast forward, when I got married to my ex-husband, he checked off every box on the top tier approval list for black women. We shared the same religious beliefs, political beliefs, same culture in terms of our ethnicity. And also, for a black man, he was considered outstanding. See, he was a black man that didn't match any of the stereotypes commonly associated with black males. You see, he was raised by a man who was also raised by a man. He'd had one wife, and his children were with one wife, not multiple women. He had never been in jail. He had never been to jail. He did not sell or use drugs, and he brought all of his money home to care for the family and our household. This guy was extraordinary. He even had a great credit score. He met every criterion for what I was supposed to be thankful for in a mate. What I can say about my ex-husband is this: I loved him. We had a great time together, but there was conflict from the start. His beliefs versus my beliefs, and his excessive need to be the head of the house were always in the way. We had different perspectives about what that meant, being head of the house, about everything from raising children to what we should eat. I can still remember the day he looked at me and said, "I finally figured out what the problem is between us." "Okay," I said, "I'm listening." He said, "You're not black." That comment had me instantly upset. "What do you mean I'm not black? Clearly I'm black." He went on to explain that my taste in film, food, and fashion were not aligned with black culture. We're not going to even talk about my taste in music. Also, my relationship desires challenged him, like holding hands or reading together, things I had seen my parents do together. I missed the fact that my parents' ancestry brought variances that perhaps were not as prevalent in black culture. It had nothing to do with skin color, but what I had been exposed to gave me a preference. My father adored my mother. I enjoyed watching my parents sit at the dinner table after we were dismissed and continue their conversation, sharing their day together. My father reading the evening news and hitting my mom with all of the highlights used to draw me under the table so that I could listen for more. I always enjoyed my parents when we went for a ride for ice cream. Sitting in the back seat, every time my father would turn to my mother as she was closer to the door on the passenger side and say, "Hey, why is my girl so far away from me?" Two black people with cultural differences in pretty much everything. What could we do to align? For a while, it seemed hopeless. We had expectations about how our relationship should be. We had expectations about how our relationship should be, and neither one of us shared those interests with the other. Over time, his demand of what I should be like began to choke us both. He expected the changes to be with me, and my failure was often met with yelling, derogatory comments, and punishment in the form of withholding love and affection. As our children grew, it was sad to see them scramble to their rooms or out of the door to a friend's house to avoid mom and dad arguing again. I began to challenge marriage and the marriage vows. I called my mom looking for a loophole other than death to separate us. I remember saying, "Mom, who wrote the marriage vows? Mom, you taught me that marriage is forever. What am I supposed to do?" At the same time, I felt guilty and ungrateful. I spent hours praying for God to fix me. What's wrong with me? I would cry because I really thought it was me. See, it was the process of introspection that led me to realize that I had, in fact, been programmed about who I should be attracted to, who I should date or not date, who I should want to spend my life with. And I followed all of the rules, checked all of the boxes on the list, and was now living in a constant state of unfulfillment. For those of you who are dating, I'm not saying that you have to open up your doors to every option on the planet. I'm just saying question what your beliefs are and challenge them to stand against what you desire in a relationship, and most of all, for your life. Listen to what you've learned about love and relationships from your parents, your grandparents, your culture, your community, your faith. Peel back the layers and see what the media has taught you, what magazines have produced that led you to believe that this is the structure you want in another human being because they're perfect, because they're beautiful, because they're thin, because they're the right height. Inspect to see what works for you and what's best for you. She might have the right sized arms, but may never laugh at your jokes. He may have the right size arms or right size chest or whatever it is that you're intrigued by, but will never look at you with adornment. I hope that this helps to clarify some things for you that you've been dealing with. I'll look forward to hearing what you discover, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.